And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to give a round of applause to one of the authors that belongs to Porcupine Press, who has just graced you with his brilliance on the piano, Mr. Angus Masson. Can you give him a round of applause, please? Thank you, Angus. Angus has written a lovely book called Mischief. Tumela Sapona Konjani, good evening, everybody. Oh my goodness gracious me.
Hello!
Come on.
Hello,
Come on. This is a huge evening this evening. I'd like you to just turn to the left, right of you and say hello to your next door neighbor, please.
Hello. Hello. I've lost my stream, it's disappeared.
Thank you. Now I just want you to please do me a favor. Take out your phones.
Start it again.
Check into Facebook. Check into Scoobs Theatre to welcome you here. And I'm so thrilled that at last Claire Rose Julius and Gail that this has taken off in a huge way. Are any of the authors, can you just show me your hands that are here tonight that are actually part of this? Welcome, 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 authors.
There's some over there.
Oh my goodness, it is so great to have you. Irene. Oh,
Irene,
wow.
where are you, Irene?
Now guys, I'll tell you why I'm saying this. In the last 14 months, we have launched over 140 African authors in this store. And this is why this event is so important to us this evening. The home of African stories is Scoobs Theatre of Books. And we want to read them. We are happy to have them. We've got one of the biggest shelves. We're probably the only bookstore in South Africa that keeps the amount. If I say 140, that's 140 authors that you don't know about, but you are going to know about tonight. And this is where you guys fit in. This program of Gail and Claire Rose has just warmed the cockles of my heart. And I've been working very closely with the Porcupine Press because they've taken the responsibility of doing exactly this, is taking African authors and showcasing them. Isn't that exciting, guys? So, Gail, I just want to say thank you so much once again. And let me tell you a little secret. Auntie Gail here knows Khalima Mahlanti. So you're in very good hands here. I have to just drop that because he was actually here at one of the events and we had a superb event. So know that you're in good hands with Claire Rose Julius, who has had this vision for a very, very long time. We need to read our own stories. It is important that we read our own stories. We want to read you. We want to get you out there. We're busy building libraries, inner city libraries, rural libraries, all over the place, showcasing African authors. And I say African right from the DRC down to South Africa. And 85% of those authors are women, go figure. So it's so exciting to have you here tonight. I hope you're going to have a wonderful evening. There's a lot of food. Gail, Dave Robbins, thank you. The Activate team, Kim for being here, Dave Henderson for being here. I hope you're going to have a wonderful evening and bring those stories. Gail, thank you so much for bringing this to Scoobs. Have a great evening, everybody. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you, Claire. Where's Claire? She always hides away. I don't know why you do that, girlfriend. Thank you, Claire. I love you so much, girlfriend.
Thank you. Deborah, wonderful as usual. Thank you so very, very much. And I just want to do some housekeeping quickly. There is still lots of wine and food. When that's done, I'm afraid you're going to have to open your own purses to pay for whatever you want. Okay, but I hope we've catered sufficiently. A huge welcome again to all of you. And I just want to tell you a little bit about the program. I'm just going to introduce you to these wonderful people who are part of Activate and BOASA, and it depends on how comfortably you're sitting as to how long you want to listen to us yakking. But I'm sure it will be informative and exciting. And up on the screen, we have all the books in the Books Direct catalogue that our young activators are selling in the rural, peri-urban and urban areas. And back, so Lisa is going to tell us about that. But right now, I'd like to call up on, is it you first, Claire? Yes, Claire first. She gets very nervous. We're going to have Claire and then Chris Mankis in the t-shirt, turquoise t-shirt. He's the head of Activate. And then Bax is going to talk about his youngsters that he looks after. And then at the end of the evening, I want to call up on David Robbins, who's also an author, by the way. And we're going to be having a very big launch here for his latest book later this year. If not later this year, early next year. We're trying to save up for the editing fee. But for now, it's hefty because the book is hefty. It's about that thick, nearly as thick as yours. Okay, so right now, Claire Julius, who has left Porcupine Press and is now purely in charge of our Section 21 company, African Narratives, and she is running this Books Direct program for South Africa. Okay, Claire, over to you.
Hi everyone. It's such an honor to present this project to you guys today. As Deborah has mentioned, it's taken us 3 years. It started at the Indie Book Fair in March 2015, and that's where the idea originated. And since I've been in distribution, we found that there's a big gap in the market. Although there's support, the support was very minimal, and I'm so happy that there's places like Scoops, because they really cater for the indie author market. And there's, if I say little support, there's really little support available. So what we did is that because of certain books that don't work in the bookshops, it's just not the market, the right market. And at the end of, if anyone know how book distribution work in bookshops, the bookshops order on SOR, and then that's consignment, which means it's sale or return. So if it doesn't sell, it's being sent back. And we've seen that a lot of the local authors that focus on local stories, grassroots literature, get sent back. And we said, no, we need to provide or develop a platform for them. And that's where Books Direct, the idea started. And we've put together 150 authors together in that catalog. Now, we've also reduced the prices so that it's available and suitable for peri-urban and urban areas. We've partnered with Activate, and Activate has a large group of youth activators around the country, and they're going to go out with their catalogs, with samples of the books, trying to sell to new readers. So we're targeting new markets, new readers that's never been tried before in South Africa. And that's going to develop the reading culture of our country. And yes, I'm going to give it over to Chris to explain a little bit more what Activate is about. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. It was wonderful arriving here this evening and seeing the catalogue. It's been a work in progress for some time. And seeing all the authors in here, it's a real celebration of what South Africa has to provide. There are amazing authors out there, and finding new markets for authors is a real privilege. Authors should be selling their books all around the country. It should be a celebration. But anyway, moving on to Activate. So Activate is, it's been a really amazing journey for all of us as the Activate team. Walking the long yards with young people from across the country. We've worked with 2,500 young people from all walks of life, across all provinces, through cities, peri-urban and urban rural areas. Young people who come from very isolated communities around the country. Young people who have not been afforded the resources of others. But young people that are doing the most amazing things. Young people that have started their own projects, working around a range of difficult issues, experiencing some of the biggest challenges that people could experience in the country and in the world, yet finding ways, innovative ways of addressing those. And it was as part of this journey that we started to realize that there was a very big lack of reading in those isolated communities. We would spend a lot of time there as teams and engage with young people and talk about it. And the difference between young people that had access to books was significant. And we were trying to understand and unpack why books were not so entrenched in all parts of the South African environment. And we started conversations with young people as to why they weren't accessing books. And we stumbled across these almost insurmountable challenges. The first big challenge was how expensive books were in South Africa. And the nature of that pricing or costing was a challenge for young people in isolated communities where 5 Rand was more important to load on a cell phone so you could communicate with your family or do some work than it was, you couldn't use that 5 Rand or save it up to buy a book. Yet the value of a book, and we all know the value of a book, the value of a book was a life changer. And we also started to realize that we're in the work of trying to take away hopelessness. And the activators that are part of the network do it in their own communities, where they engage in projects that try and create hope for a better future. And it's a very difficult thing to sell to somebody in a very isolated community, that tomorrow is going to be better than today. But one of the things that is the most useful is a book. Because a book takes you on a journey. A book is easily accessible. A book helps you build perspective. A book helps you build skills. A book helps you realize your potential. Books make you cry. They make you laugh. Books are the most incredibly fertile opportunity to develop yourself, and they butt this far away from you. But we realized that this far away from you in an isolated community could be 1,000 kilometers. So I then met David, who really inspired us. David had a vision of a South Africa that was reading, a South Africa that was engaging with books, and a South Africa that had access to books, even if you were in a very isolated community. And we saw the opportunity to walk down this road. It's not going to be an easy road, trying to discover how we can distribute books. But what we've realized is we've got an incredibly rich backdrop of South African authors. I just want to share a story with you. When we started the journey, we started with a workshop. And at the workshop, Claire brought 100 books or more in some big boxes. And we had a group of activators with us, and we were dreaming about what this could look like in the future. And the best part of the workshop was spending an hour trying to choose books that resonated with us. To see the different stories, the different life stories that we had that actually led to us choosing those particular books. Those that had particular need of some insights into leadership, or those that really liked fiction or non-fiction. What was interesting is a lot of us adults had at least one children's book on our list, which was very cute. There were amazing children's books there too. But the celebration of reading was very much a part of that conversation, and that's what we're trying to get out. So we are really grateful that we can go on the journey with African Narratives. We are so looking forward to shedding light on how we can best serve young South Africans through this process, and also serve the authors that spend hours, weeks, months, years, creating content that is of value to young people in the country. So it is to that we must bend our backs in the future, and we are not going to give up until we've cracked this nut. And thank you for the opportunity of being here tonight.
Thank you, Chris, so much. Vasilin Ladler. Have I said it right?
It's a lucky book, isn't it?
He is Claire's partner in terms of the whole Books Direct program, and the two of them are running the project with guidance, I think, from Chris, and the odd moment with Claire, David and I. Okay, over to Beth.
Thank you so much, Kate. Well, the name is Batolise Zali. And before you ask, myself and Chris never shared notes on what to wear tonight. So African Narratives and Activate. So a lot has been said already. And I think our job or our duty between myself and Claire is really simple. Is to make sure that the books do get to the people that need to be reached. The slogan is probably the most catchy of them all, and it underlines why this project is so important. And it's about local books for local readers. There's so many books that we find in bookstores, that we find elsewhere that are available to read, but most of the times it's not local authors. So when we set out on this project, we wanted to answer a number of questions, and one of them was one, are we able to reach more people by local authors? So can we get more books in the hands of local people by local authors? Why local authors? These are stories that are relevant to South Africa. These are stories that the reader will be able to identify with. And also, because the authors are local, we will have access to the authors themselves to come and inspire even or share even more about the stories that they've written and why and how it came about. So that was one. And two, could we create an income stream for the young people? I mean, as Chris has shared, that we've got over 2,500 young people across the country that we worked with and are currently working with. Could we, perhaps by getting these local authors out there, also create an income stream for them? As we know, in South Africa, unemployment is a very big challenge. And a lot of people have been trying to crack it, and each and every quarter, it seems to be getting worse. So the more we talk about it, unfortunately, it is not going to be solved by that. But we need to start putting action to our words. And what I can say is that we are not necessarily going to have all the answers, but it is important for us to try. And then one last thing is to make sure that we've got younger authors that are coming through, okay? Because we've seen, if I were to ask how many young people are authors in this room, I know even myself, my hand would stay down. So hopefully by the end of this process, I will have my hand up and say, hey, listen, I've also got a book out. Maybe I'll be here at Scoops one day, who knows? But it's also to make sure that more younger authors are coming through, and also to ensure that their content is reaching the readers that are out there. As we know, it is very difficult to publish a book. I mean, Gail made an influence that they are still busy trying to save up for editing of David's latest book. So you can imagine, how difficult it is to break into this market with the publishing costs, editing costs, etc., etc. So we are hoping that by the end of this process, we would have been able to push more local authors, and not only local authors, but younger authors as well. Now, to date, as I close, we started this process in July. Was it July? In July, and we're in August now. With the workshop. So what we did is we put out word in the network that whoever's got a love for reading and would like other people across South Africa to be part of that, to also inherit this love of reading. And young people applied, we selected a few and we had a workshop with them just to try and assist them to say, this is how you sell books, these are some of the strategies and methodologies which you could apply. And we, so far, even though we had lofty targets, we trained 13 young people for now because of cost limitations. Of those, we've been able to sell, I think, roughly about 50 books so far, even though we had planned or we had intended to sell a bit more, but we're finding out why is it difficult as well. So it has not been going necessarily according to plan, but we are making some steady progress. What we are finding out is that people do want to read, firstly. Secondly, sometimes the barrier could be cost. So as we are going along on this process, we are finding out what are some of the barriers and what can change. So I'm hoping that by the end of the year, we'll be having a much better report to report about this project. But thank you for being here tonight. And yeah, may you support local readers, or rather local authors, by reading local books. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. What I'd like to say is that there are quite a few of the book's direct authors. I nearly said porcupine authors, but there are authors here that we distribute their books, and they are not necessarily porcupine authors. But we have had some books published by 16-year-olds. The one was a science fiction book called Blaze, and the other was a 16-year-old girl who was most precocious and terribly bright, and she's now studying at Aberdeen University in Scotland, doing nuclear physics. And her book was a book of how teenagers should deal with life in high school. And it was jam-packed full of the most wonderful quotes from everybody, from Winston Churchill to Mao Zedong, for example. And so yes, it's possible, but you can't write if you don't read. And that is the crux of the matter. So one of the tasks we've got